Well, man, we got a treat for you today. Today's mini clinic is going to be by Coach Scott Goolsby, the defense coordinator at Auburn High School in Alabama. Coach has been the national assistant coach of the year. He's been Alabama assistant coach of the year. He's played in the state championship game in Auburn. They've had a great run there. His defenses always play hard, play with an edge, play with a passion. And he's going to talk about how they get those, the non-negotiables, how they teach start and stance, how they do all those things that come together to really get after it. And guess what? If you hang in there long enough, there's a boxing clip. So you're going to like this one. Please be joined this time by Coach Scott Goolsby. Coach is the defense coordinator at Auburn. Been the state coach of the year for assistant coaches, been on some really good teams. Coach, I appreciate you joining me.
Man, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited. I'm honored you would ask, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your videos. They crack me up, but I also appreciate you being a good ball coach.
Man, I appreciate that. It's funny how those videos have kind of taken off. It's crazy. You got to have some fun with this, man, you know?
It's great. And, you know, yeah. I never thought that you would make so many friends that you never met on something like that, you know, on Twitter, because I don't make them videos, but I do stuff that people seem to like and retweet and all that. And it ends up being this thing where you have all these people that you talk to and you don't even really know them. You know, we didn't have that when we were starting out coaching, you know, you just knew the folks that you worked with.
That's right. Yeah, you know, that's right.
So I think that's great, man. We got a lot of negatives in the world. It's good to laugh a little bit.
Oh, you got to laugh. Man. You got to laugh, especially you get on Twitter too much. It'll make you want to, delete that app. So you got to turn it into fun.
You got to pick who you're following. Hey, Coach. So we're going to talk about, you've been a defense coordinator. You've done a great job of defense. One thing that Auburn plays with is an edge on defense. I've heard other people say it.
Right.
Seen little guys play. So give us the mini clinic version of creating an edge on your defensive football team. Have at it. I'm gonna shut up. Okay. I don't know nothing about it. My brother coaches.
You interrupt
all the points.
You interrupt me when you want to, Coach. So but like I said, we'll go ahead and jump into this. And these are the topics that I want to go through, talking about how we try to create an edge on defense at our place. We'll talk about our culture, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on that and bore people with that. We'll talk about our non-negotiables, and then I'll really get into these last two things down here are how we practice, and then an underdog mentality that we try to get our guys to play with. But a couple things about us and why I think it's important that we do play with an edge. We are the biggest school in the state. We got a little over 2,000 students in grades 10 through 12. This past spring, we finished with 169 football players. So we got a huge team. We had like 70 sophomores. So we have to have two separate teams. We'll have a varsity dress team, and then we have a JV only team. So we're big, and we've been in the 7A semifinals for 3 years in a row. And we were the runner-up 2 years ago in 2020. So we are a big team, but we're not going to scare anybody when we get off the bus. And we're not going to get off the bus with a bunch of 4- and 5-star, dudes that you just look at and they go, my gosh, like we just don't. That's just not the kind of kids we have. And I say that's not the kind of kids we have. We have cycles where we have some kids that are going. Last year we had some size up front. We have some good looking kids, but as a general rule, we're not going to be the most overly talented team when we take the field every Friday night, if you know what I'm saying. We're going to be talented enough, but we're not going to walk out there max preps, All-Americans, and 4- and 5-stars like some of these other people that we're going to play. So I feel like we've got to give our kids something that is going to allow them to be able to compete and win those games against those teams that are maybe a little more talented than us. And so this whole edge and playing with an attitude on defense is something that it's not just empty words for us. I mean, we mean it, and we try to drill it in these kids, and they do a great job picking it up. So first thing we're going to talk about is our culture that we try to play in on defense. And these are just some general ideas that I try to keep in mind as the coordinator. Football is a great game, but it's a terrible God. And I'm a born again Christian, and I want the kids I know, or the kids that play for me, I want them to know, I don't want them to ever feel like they're just a pawn out there to try to win a football game for me. I want them to know that they mean more than that, that we want them to be successful. I was just texting one of my former players before we got on here. I want them to know that we're going to keep up with them down the road. And, people don't care. I'm sure you've heard this before. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I want the guys that play for us to know that we care about them. We tell them that, we try to get together with them all the time. But that means a lot to a kid if they know that you're real, that they can come to you and they can talk to you and you're going to be there and you're not just out there to browbeat them and try to win a football game. I think that means a lot to a kid. It did to me as a player. And then another thing, we've sat around as a staff and talked about when people watch us play, what do we want them to say about us after they watch us play? Like, what are some words that we would want people to use about Auburn High School defense? And you can see some of them that we've talked about on the screen. We would love for them to say that we're tough, we're fast, we're physical. We play with attitude and great effort. We're gritty. We're always ready for a fight. Wherever you want us to play, we'll be there. And we want them to say that, we have fun. And that's the last thing that you see up there. This game's supposed to be fun. I think sometimes as coaches, man, we can forget that. And if you're keeping in mind that this game's already, we play it and practice it at the hottest times of the year. I mean, it's brutally hot out there right now, and humid and sticky. And you're asking kids to get out there. We start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's not comfortable at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's more comfortable than it is at 2 probably, but it's not comfortable at 8 o'clock in the morning. And the game is becoming more and more of an offensive game too. I mean, they're making it harder and harder for us to play defense just with some of the rules and, what offenses can do now is crazy. When I first started coaching 22 years ago, if you were holding people to 10 points or less a game, 7 points or less a game, that was kind of your goal that you wanted to. Now, if you're holding them under 18 to 20 points a game, you're probably pretty decent on defense. And so we got to figure out a way to make the game fun, and specifically to make it to where a kid wants to play defense. Because in my mind, if you've probably heard Pete Jenkins say this before. If you took some kids and put them on a bus and took them to a football field and just dropped them off, they're not going to run down to the sleds and start working hat and hands and squeezing down blocks and scraping and fitting tie. They're going to go pick the footballs up and throw the footballs and start running around and having fun. And that's what I would do. So we gotta have fun on defense, and we got to figure out a way to make it sexy, all the little things that we want them to do. Like, we got to have fun with that. And so that's something that we try to do as a staff with them is we're going to play discipline. We're going to play hard, but we're going to have fun too. And this next thing right here, this is I've used this in the clinic before. This is just I'm a visual guy, visual learner. This is just a little visual snapshot of our kids over the years having fun playing defense. And, I just feel like we work them so hard that when it comes time to Friday night, I don't want them guys worried about anything. I don't want them guys nervous. I want them guys having fun and being comfortable and playing high school football on a Friday night with their teammates, their friends, their buddies in front of their hometown crowd. And when they do something great, by God, we're going to celebrate. We're going to have a good time with it. And I'm going to let them do that. The only thing I tell them all the time is if you've got enough energy to celebrate, bring that energy to us. Don't give it to the opponent. Mm-hmm. Because if we get out there and we start taunting the opponent and all that kind of stuff, all that does is give them all of your energy now. And if we've got our foot on their throat and we've got them down, why give them an opportunity to wake up? Because I know that if I'm ever in a situation where maybe I don't feel great or whatever, but somebody starts taunting me, I'm ready to fight right then, no matter what. And so that's the only stipulation we put on it with them. Bring all your energy to our sideline and to our team and to us, and we'll celebrate and we'll have a good time. But we're not going to do anything with the opponent. And if they do, we hold them accountable for it, obviously. The next thing right here, Coach, several years ago, we came up with a set of non-negotiables. We started just trying to figure out a way, how can we hold these kids accountable to play the way that we want them to play? And so we just came up with these non-negotiables that we operate under these things, and we remind our kids of these things often. All right. And you see, we got 4 of them. Clear communication is the number one thing we've got to do on defense. You got to be able to communicate out there. We got to, our linebackers will call the strength and get us lined up right. DB's got to talk every single play, checking in and out of this coverage and talking splits and that stuff. And then we got to communicate off the field as well. If the kids are not, if a kid's going to miss a day for whatever he's got, he better communicate and he better talk, better tell one of his coaches. Our second non-negotiable is we want consistent effort regardless of the situation. And I say clear communication is the number one thing we got to do on defense. The number one thing we preach more than anything is consistent effort regardless of the situation, because it's easy to play hard when, you feel good, or when the game's in your favor. but you got to play hard when you don't feel good. Like football don't really care about your feelings and how you feel. And you got to play good when
care about your feelings. That's
no.
the line of that show. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't care about your feelings. And I don't care about your feelings. And I'll tell them that, like, when we're on the field, I don't care how you feel. I don't care how I feel. I don't always want to get up in the morning and immediately get out on the football field and do work. I don't, but I have to make myself do that. And that's another thing. If I want them to play with consistent effort, then I've got to give consistent effort. I can't go out on the field as a coach and put my hands in my pockets and twirl my whistle out there. I mean, I got to be going. Like, I've got to get myself up and get going. So we pride ourselves on being an effort-based defense, and you know, whatever the situation is. And I enjoy in practice when things don't go well. And we had an OTA this morning, and if something goes bad, that's the first thing that pops in my mind is we can't come over here and let our effort drop because we gave up a touchdown in 7-on-7. Like, it doesn't matter. Your effort is a non-negotiable. It doesn't change regardless of the situation. We spend a lot of time talking and coaching and teaching that point. And then, of course, we got to be coachable, and that's coach, player, player, player. If a kid is by coachable, we tell them this, you know, you can, you know, if a kid's coachable, if you instruct them what to do, and then they go out there and try to do whatever you're instructing them to do. You know what I'm saying? If you're teaching a kid over and over and over again to scrape and fit tight, and he just never does it, either I'm teaching it wrong or he just can't do it, right? He just can't do it. He's either can't do it because he's not coachable, or he's just not a good football player. But you got to be able to take coaching, and you got to be able to take getting your butt chewed sometimes as a football player. And because I'm going to get up in their tail, and I'm going to coach them hard, and so is our coaching staff. You can't get in your feelings when that happens. That's part of being coachable. And then everything we do has got to be team first mentality. I want them to be excited to play defense. I want them to take pride in playing defense. But at the end of the day, we're part of Auburn High football, and we're trying to win a football game. So we don't want to ever do anything that's going to hurt the football team. And I got one play in mind several years ago. It was a quarterfinal playoff game, and we were winning like 10-0 or 13-0. I think it was 13-0. And we got a huge sack on third down, and a D lineman got up and just kind of did this to the sideline, to their sideline, 15-yard penalty, first down. They end up going down and scoring and making it a 13-7 ball game in the fourth quarter. It never should have happened. He broke one of our non-negotiables, and he paid for it. But I think these things, I put some thoughts on the screen too. I think when you're coming up with a set of non-negotiables, at least from my perspective, you need to be clear and concise. I don't think you need to have too many. I think they need to be measurable. I think it needs to be something that you can actually point to and say, you didn't do this thing, or you did do this thing. And I do that a lot. I'll pull up a play on film, or pull up, you know, point out something in 7-on-7. I tell them all the time, guys, that's Auburn High defense right there. Those guys that are flying to the ball and doing whatever is happening on that play. We'll point that out to them. It's measurable. And I think whatever those things are you include in your non-negotiables, there's got to be something that's important to you and your staff. Everybody's would be different. And then I think the last thing, you got to enforce them. Like, don't just put them on a sheet of paper and put them on a PowerPoint. They're going to be empty words, and it's not going to matter anything to the players. I think it's got to be something that you enforce, and you remind them of them often. We remind them of these every Sunday during the season when we meet with them. They see these on the board, and we point out if we didn't do it during the week. So that's something that's really, really important to us in establishing an edge. Is they know these non-negotiables. Can they quote them back to me? Some of them can, some of them can't. But I promise you, they can quote back communication and effort. I promise you, they can do that. We hold them to that all the time.
I love this, by the way, because that's something we preach in this just coach help thing that I'm doing. Yeah. Come up with a couple of things that you can hold. I'm talking about on-field accountability. Everybody talks about all this off the field. I'm good with that too, the culture stuff. But have some on-field stuff. I'm a quarterback. These are the three things I got to do. You know, and if it's a whole defense, you can use a team effort. These are the things. It doesn't have to be the same. You may not love everything coach said. But and he might not love everything I put out there on that. But pick 4 or 5 things. Pick 2 or 3 things. Not 20 either, by the way, because that's a problem too. A couple things. I think you'd be surprised, Coach. I bet most of those kids do know them. They may not can quote them verbatim as you got them on here, but they can tell them to you.
Yeah.
And that is how you get people to buy in. It's about marketing and advertising and all the stuff that you would think it wouldn't be about. You
Right.
know, it is. You got to put it in a way they can understand. 3 or 4 things, you know, make it measurable, say them over and over again. And for long, they're saying them to each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I know you know all that, but I hope people heard that. It wasn't just like clinic talk. Hey,
Right.
like pick you 3 or 4 things, say them over and over again, and you'll be amazed the kids will start doing them.
Yeah, because it's funny you say that, because back over here, we talked about when we tell them all the time, we want to always be ready for a fight. So whenever we're talking about at practice, where do we want to do this? Where do we want to do that? I don't care where we do a drill. I don't care where it's at. Like, just put the ball down somewhere. And that's not trying to sound, you know, anyway, I just don't want our kids to ever think that they've got to have the circumstance or the situation in their favor, because it never happens on Friday night on defense. We always get put in a bad bind. You know what I mean? It could be a turnover. It can be a PI. Like, you throw the ball deep, you're going to get a PI 50% of the time. Like, something bad always happens to you on defense. So just put the ball down. And I've heard our kids quote that at practice one day. We were talking about, why did we change the drill? I heard a linebacker go, it don't matter, man. Just put the ball down somewhere and we'll play. And so you're right. I think it's like you said, you say it over and over again. And I'm not a guy, I don't think, I view myself as a guy that I'm going to coach them hard. And I'm one of those guys that I'm going to coach. And I think you may have tweeted something about this, or somebody else that you follow tweeted something a couple of weeks ago about coaching something every single play. That's the way I was brought up in coaching. I'm a big believer, like, don't stand over there after a play and not say anything, even if it's a great job. That's what that's supposed to look like.
Could you believe that was controversial? That blew my mind.
I should be able to believe it, this crazy world we live in, but no.
I mean, it's fine if people have difference of opinion, but it was like they were saying that was wrong. I didn't understand that at all. And maybe that's because I'm getting old. You know, when you're getting old, when you don't understand. But yeah, we'll just agree to disagree on that. Anybody,
but kids want to be coached every play too. They don't want to not be taught.
That's what I've seen. Yeah.
And so, you know, we try to do that every play and remind them of these things. And like I said, I'm not a guy that's I'm going to coach you every play, but I'm not a guy I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to try to give you confidence, and I'm going to have fun. But I will go off. I will absolutely go off on one of these 4 things right here, because it will get you beat. And then we've went back and watched film from games where we've made mistakes and we give up a busted play in the secondary. Why is it? We didn't communicate. Well, there you go. That's one of our non-negotiables. And I went off on a kid the other day at a 7-on-7. He quit on a play, and I absolutely went off. And one of the players, we were joking on the bus ride back home. He said, Coach, I forget how he said, you be tripping out there, don't you, Coach? Or you be something, I don't remember. And I said, no, I don't be tripping. I be caring. And all these things matter to me, and they matter to our defense. And it was a joke, and he kind of understood the thing, but it is something that's important to us. But now when we get into practice and how we organize practice, this is something that I try to take pretty serious too. I don't want to, if people come watch us practice, I don't want them to leave and say, man, that was like just a mess. That was just an unorganized, chaotic. How do they get anything done? And so we try to be really organized. Plus we got 169 kids out there. You got to be organized, or you got kids just running around everywhere, you know, lost, not knowing what they're doing. So some of the things that we talk about whenever we sit down and organize practice schedules in the beginning of the spring and all that kind of stuff is we want to be organized and over prepared. My first head coach taught me with his practice schedule, when we go out there, and he said, you write down the drills that you're going to do, write down more than you think you're going to need. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. And I still do that to this day. My practice schedule tomorrow morning has got more drills and things on there that I want to get to that I won't get to them all. But we're always going to be organized and over prepared. We're going to make the players run on the field. I can't stand seeing a kid, and I'll show you a little overhead view of our practice facility and our field in a few minutes, but I can't stand seeing a kid run out, walk out of that door and just walk out to his practice spot. I think that sets a bad tone in his mind and a bad tone to everybody else around him, because we all know when you sit in school all day in that air conditioner and it feels great, and then you walk out there in that heat, it may be 98 degrees, but at that point it feels like it's 198 degrees when you've been in the air conditioner. Now you're going to walk out there to your spot. That's a bad way to start practicing. So we're going to run. I don't care if you're a DB and you're on the other end of the field, you're going to run down there. All right. And when you get out there, we're going to start doing something immediately. We're not going to get out there and get in lines and stand there and wait on everybody else to get in lines. Like, we're going to run out there, and I coach linebackers. We're going to have some bags set up when we go through the bags. and we're just getting our heart rate up and kind of getting going. And then we'll start stretching a little bit. We're going to start practice fast. I can't stand starting a practice slow with a walkthrough or anything like that. We're going to give the players a lot of reps, as many as we can. Kids don't want to come out there and stand. They don't want to do that. They'll go home. And so sometimes with as many kids as we got, every day we have two. So if I'm doing a drill, I got two of them going so that there's not a bunch of kids standing around. So we're trying to give them as many reps as we can get. We try to make the drills competitive. And I loved what y'all said on one of your podcasts. You had the 10 tips to winning games, and you talked about making the drills. I think the quote was, if you want to get better at football, practice football. And
some of the stuff people do, man,
it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And we're going to drill now. We're going to do stuff, but it's all stuff that
should be movements they're going to do in the game.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Yep. It's movements that they're going to do in the game. And sometimes that takes a little thought, but if you're sitting there watching a kid and he's not scraping and fitting tight as a linebacker, then do a drill where he's got to scrape and fit tight as a linebacker. I mean, so we believe in that. And then we're part whole. We're going to try to put it all together, and we're going to have some indie and then some group and then some team time. And another thing that I get hung up on at practice is when we are transitioning between different spots on the field, I can't stand seeing kids walk to those periods, like run. I don't know. I think it's just a mental thing when you transition. Plus, it helps stay on time and maximizes your time, and you're not wasting time out there. So we emphasize transitions a lot. We have to coach on the run a lot and watch film the next morning. And then I want to have fun out there, man. I do not want to go to football practice and be miserable and stand there in wet shoes and twirl. I just don't want to do that. I want to run around, and I may dance on the field some. I can't dance, but I just want to bring some energy to the day. All right. Like I said, we practice when it's hot and miserable out there. So we want to have some fun doing that. And then how we're organized, this is an aerial view of our practice situation. And over here to the far right is our building. And then when you come out of the front door, you've got just a regulation 100-yard football field. That's the offensive field, surrounded by track, goalposts, scoreboard down here, all that stuff. And you can see where each position group's got a spot on the field. And then over here to the left side of the building is about a 170-yard field, and that's our defensive field. And you can see where everybody kind of gets, and we keep all of our stuff in those little spots so that it's organized and it's out there when we get out there. And everybody knows where to go. So when those kids get dressed, they come running out of the building and they run out to their spots, and we get ready to roll. Now here's where I get a little bit excited. So you can look over to the left, and I won't spend a ton of time going through this, but this is kind of our practice routine that we go through every day. We're going to have a challenge period at the beginning of most practices, some kind of board drill. You can't do the old school Oklahoma anymore, but we don't do any of that stuff during the season. But we like to start practice off some kind of challenge period, and then we go through your normal stuff and finish with a team, and then a little competition period at the end. But I think, at least in my mind, one of the things that gives us a little bit of an edge is we're going to do a stance and start period at the beginning of practice every single day. And I've not always done that in my career. We started doing it a few years ago, but I'll never coach a defensive football practice where we don't do some type of stance and start period every single day. And I'll explain why and show you why in just a second. And we try to set aside, when I make the defensive practice schedule, you can see it over there. I try to set aside a 5-minute period every single day that is just stance and start. And you can do it all kind of different ways. I'll pull up some film in just a second that I'll get to, but this is one of my favorite things that we do. Partly because we're going to have some fast kids. Like I was telling you a while ago, we're never going to have 4 and 5 stars, probably at linebacker. We're going to have some really good football players that can run, but sometimes they're a little bit undersized. Like the guys I got this year I wouldn't take any linebacker in the state of Alabama for the 3 linebackers that I got starting for me this year, but most of them are undersized. They can play, they're fast, they play with great leverage, great eye discipline, but they're just undersized guys. And so we're going to play fast, but I'm going to try to give them a little edge to make them play a little bit faster than what they are. And I think this is this stance and start. We try to play every play with a great stance and a great start, and try to be the first one to get to the contact on every play. And I sell them on it, and I tell them all the time, if you don't start a play right by getting in a great stance, you'll never finish a play right. And I have to show that to them on film. And it's amazing. That's not just empty words, but it's amazing that when you watch film, if a kid misses a tackle, it's usually because he wasn't in a great stance. He got lazy with his technique at the beginning of the play. And we had a kid in 7-on-7 of the day get burnt on a deep ball, and he wasn't even in the stance at the beginning of the play. He was talking to the wide receiver, boom, ball snap, he's gone. Got beat on a fade ball. And we have to point that stuff out to them. But as far as linebackers go, we teach to get their feet in a power position. I tell them just like you would if you were squatting or about to power clean, get some air underneath your heels, kind of get pigeon-toed, weight on the balls of your feet. And I remind them of that every single day. And we do this drill every single day. And then we're going to bend what bends. We're going to get our hands ready to attack. I don't overcoach the hands. I just want them to, I don't want them to just kind of rest them on their thigh board like they're being lazy. I'm like, this kid in this picture right here, I would kid him all the time. I told him he had the best stance in 7A football. That's a beautiful linebacker stance. If I was picking one, other than his mouthpiece being out, I would pick that stance right there. It's beautiful. He's got his back flat. He's got his eyes up through his eyebrows. Like, he's ready to go. Everything looks perfect right there. And so we start every practice that day building a stance. Now, we may not go through feet, bend, eyes every day, but we're going to get in a good stance every day, and we're going to roll it out, and we're going to work flows and moving off of me and rock steps and different things like that in that stance and start period. But I think that gives us an edge, and I've got some film on it I'm going to pull up in just a second. But you see that quote up there from Kobe Bryant, I never got bored with the basics. I think that's a great quote because obviously he's one of the greatest basketball players ever. I'm a 90s guy, so I still think Michael Jordan is the greatest team sport athlete ever. But Kobe obviously was a dude. And, you go back, the more you read on him and watch his stuff, he focused on the basics. Now, he had unbelievable athletic ability, but he focused on the basics. And so we try to do that with our guys at every position, get them in a great stance and start. So I've got a little bit of film. Now, it's not great film. I'm going to be honest with you. This was from January when most of my guys were off trying out for baseball and lacrosse and basketball. And so we didn't have many guys out there, but.
All right, here we go. So let's do this. Y'all get your feet right.
Can you hear that audio?
Get in a power position. All right, like you're about to jump up as high as you can right here. Point your toes in, right? Weight on your instep. Now stand back up. Yeah, don't bend just yet. Let's just get our feet right.
And so I'll go back to that, but if you heard me tell them, don't bend just yet.
All right, here we go. Here.
I want them to get their feet just right. That's the most important thing. Get those feet right. Then we'll start bending. Then we'll start getting our eyes right. And so when we start spring, when we start fall practice, this is the first thing we'll do with them. And we do it all the way up to hopefully the state championship game. We'll be working on the stance and start. We got all kind of different drills that we do out of that. But if you go and you look at how that applies to the actual game, because if it doesn't help us in a game, it's just one of those Twitter drills that you was talking about that you think looks cool on your Twitter page. But right here, if you'll watch number 12 right here, he was our nickel linebacker, and we're doing this was in the semifinals this past year. We're doing a little showing. All right, we got a little show series of blitzes. Then he comes back and he gets in his stance. He comes back and he gets in his stance. Give it a minute, let him pop out. Boom. So he's in that stance right there. Great stance. We got a little pinch play on. So he's a spill guy, and the ball's supposed to spill to him. And you go back and you watch him again, Coach, there's no false movement. Big on not having any false movement. He's in that great stance right now, just like we looked at a while ago. Eyes are in the right spot. His butt's down, right? Maybe a little bit high. But then when that ball snap, boom, taking that downhill step, and he gets straight to the ball. He's the first of the contact, and he gets in there and cleans up on that tackle right there. So, and that's something that we point out to him when we're watching that film, that stance and that start right there. I got another clip right here. If you look at these two guys, same linebacker as Mike linebacker, look, great stance right there, right? Great stance. All right. Ball's turned over right here. No false movement out of any one of them. All right. He's a leverage guy. He's an outside leverage guy. So he comes up, sets an edge right there, gets in on the tackle. All right. I don't know if this film quality is showing up really good on here, Coach, but if you look at the mic right here, we coach a rock step with those guys. All right. And the mics, I'll just let it play. All right. He takes a step with the bag, and then he has the rock step over, and he gets in there and kind of cleans up the tackle. But both those guys' stance and starts were exceptional. And that's just something that in my eyes, it gives us a little bit of an edge. And whenever we're reviewing film from our opponent, I'm always looking at, you know, who's taking a false step and how fast did we get to this play. And like I said, I just think it's something that helps us play a little bit faster than what we really are, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
So, and then the last thing on that, I just think we like I said, we work this every day, Coach, and I'm a big believer in the cumulative effect of work, that whatever you work on consistently is going to create habits that they fall back on in the heat of battle. And so whatever those habits are that I want our guys to have, you know, like I said, I've said this a couple of times on here, scraping and fitting tight at linebacker, or lining up inside leverage at safety, or squeezing a down block up front. We work that every single day. And I just believe that over time, that stuff just accumulates to where it just becomes a habit that they don't even have to think about. And another thing about that, we're in the process right now, just adding some things on defense. And I tell them all the time, if you can't do those little things, man, we're not going to add all this cool stuff that we're trying to add. So we're a big believer in that cumulative effect of work. And I want to go on this last thing right here, because this is something we started doing this year. All right. We started talking to them about this mentality of an underdog. We started studying underdogs and over history and all that type of stuff. And I'm going to go through this pretty quick, although this is something important to us this year. If you think about an underdog, we could go through, and I could spend another 30 minutes talking about that. But if you go through and you the qualities of an underdog, they're hungry, they're always climbing, they never think they've arrived, they're fearless, they handle adversity, they don't let a failure, you know, handicap them, they're never going to be outworked. And so we talk to them all the time about how that's who we want to be this year. We want to have a mentality in every game we go into that we're the underdog, right? And so, quick example, last year we played IMG. We were the clear underdog in that game, the number 2 team in the country. I forget how many 4 and 5 stars they had. They were loaded. Quality, class organization, great football team. It was fun playing them. Going into that game, I don't know if you've ever seen this Marvin Hagler versus Thomas Hearns fight, but we have a defensive meeting at 4:30 on Fridays before we go to the stadium. And all we did that day was go in there and show them this fight. And I'm not going to obviously play it. I know we got to go, but if you've never seen this, if you go back and watch it,
usually likes to establish dominance.
When the bell rings right here, these guys don't get out. Boom. I'll stop right there, but they go out there and just hitting each other, Coach, from the time the bell rang. I mean, they're beating each other's face in. And we let the kids watch this, and we're going to play IMG in week 10, and we let them watch about 2 minutes of it. And of course, they were loving it. And all we told them was, guys, obviously we're the underdogs. All right, let's go out there from the very first play and get these guys in a fist fight. Let's hit them in the mouth on the first play, get them in a fist fight, see how they respond. Like, why not? See what happens. We may shock the world. All right. So on the first play of the game, let me get this thing to click over. On the first play of the game right here, if you'll watch this, all right, this is the first play, IMG week 10, stadium's packed. I'm nervous thinking, what are we doing? This is not the number 2 team in the state. It's the number 2 team in the country. What are we doing here? First play of the game. So this defensive end was a 3-star for us. This was their 5-star offensive tackle. Keep an eye on him. All right. So he beats his guy on the rush, hits the quarterback. We intercept it, or get it down to about the 15-yard line. The stadium's going crazy right there. About 2 or 3 plays later, we're scoring. We're up 7-0 on IMG, and the place was going berserk. We ended up losing the game. We fumbled the ball with about 5 minutes left to go in the game, and they scored, and we got beat. But our kids they were very, 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 I was proud to see this. They were extremely disappointed after that game that they did not win it. They were crying in the locker room. I was crying in the locker room because I was so proud of how I didn't want a moral victory. I wanted to win it or not, and we didn't win it, and they were upset, but they had an unbelievable amount of confidence going into the playoffs. And just coming off of that and off of last season, I just started thinking, you know, that needs to be our mindset in everything we do. We don't ever need to think we've arrived in any drill, in any 7-on-7 OTA, whatever the situation is. We need to always have that underdog mentality that, like I said, I hope will be our edge going into this season right here. So I just can conclude it with these things right here. Who do you want to be on defense? You're going to leave that to chance, or you're going to take charge and do it yourself? We're going to try to take charge and become who we want to become on defense. So,
Coach, that was great. That was fantastic. Listen, I've done probably about 350 of these, some capacity. We add up all the different podcast types and these things. It's probably about 350.
Mhm.
I don't know if I ever had one that included 4 good non-negotiables, which I talk about a lot, and starting stance, which nobody usually wants to talk about,
Right.
and a Marvin Hagler fight.
Oh yeah, coach.
Look,
I
now
love
that was an
boxing, man.
all-timer.
I love boxing, man. We can do another podcast and let's just talk boxing.
No,
Yeah.
but it was relevant.
Okay.
I hope people see that. You know, this is a team that, man, y'all were a couple plays from state championship a couple years ago. You're
Right.
playing IMG. I mean, we're not talking about middle level, low level football. We're talking about high level.
Right.
And we're sitting there, got guys standing there worrying about stance and start.
Okay. We do
That's
it.
what the
We do it.
best teams do.
Yeah, we do it every day. And I'm not making that up. And we were going to play Thompson. We were doing it in Tuscaloosa. We were doing our stance to start. Now we'll do it different, obviously, but yeah, we do stance start every single day. It means a lot.
But that's what people need to know about this stuff. I think there's a misconception among folks who haven't coached at Auburn or Thompson or Hoover or wherever else it is, that y'all just have these good players and you just go out and roll the ball out and y'all win half your games that way.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes those teams have good players, no doubt. But a lot of teams have good players, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of teams, 20 or 30 teams in Alabama have pretty good players.
Yes, they do.
You know, so it really comes down to those little things that people dismiss when you do have some good players.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought I had no idea exactly what you're going to talk about. So I thought that was fantastic. And then finding ways to connect to your players,
Yeah.
whether it's those non-negotiables
Mhm.
or showing them the boxing video.
Yeah.
That's a piece of it. You may not be into boxing. Maybe you're into something else, or you may not love the 4 coach had, but you better come up with a way to connect to those players with something they can understand.
Yeah.
And visuals or something they can understand, quick, simple rules that they hear over and over, or things they can understand.
Yep.
And I thought it was great, coach. I'm a fan. I come coach. You come coach defense. I'll get back in coaching because we might stop somebody. We'll score some points.
Let's go, coach. Let's do it, man. I've heard, Georgia high school football. I got a great amount of respect for Georgia high school football. And I got a buddy, and I forget, I wish I wrote down what school he's at. Joe Thornton, he retired out of Alabama, but he'd been at Colquitt and a couple other places, and he's at a new place now, something county. I know that don't help. Thomas
County Central. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where he's
Thomas
at right
County
now.
Central, yeah.
But we were talking, and he was just raving about, South Georgia high school football. And, I follow those teams over there, and it's a great, great state for high school football, just like Alabama is, man.
Just like Alabama is. I'm from Alabama. I'm in Georgia. All my
Yeah.
work's Georgia, but I spent my first 22 years in the state of Alabama. Grew up there. And, the difference I've seen is the best teams in Alabama are every bit as good, if not in some cases better than the best teams in Georgia.
Yeah.
There's just a lot more of them in Georgia. There's just a lot more of them. I mean, some of the teams that are going 4-6, 5-5 over here are pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. And that was the difference when I saw the two, because I got friends in both states. But listen, I mean, Hoover comes over here, Thompson, you guys, it's 10 or 12 teams in Alabama play with the best 10 or 12 teams anywhere.
Yeah.
And after that, it might drop off a little bit because Georgia, just the population, plus there's just more of those communities, those South Georgia type communities. There's not as many of those in Alabama.
Right.
I'm from Foley, and when Foley was one school down there, but now it's 5 or 6 schools.
Yeah.
It was a little different, but now it's not. And so they just have more of those kind of situations. So y'all take it easy on Foley if y'all get them in the play. I'll get them every now and then in the playoffs and stuff. So
it's been a while, but yeah, we had them about 7 or 8 years ago. So
yeah, maybe you'll get them again. We need them getting back in there so you get them again.
Yeah.
Coach, I appreciate your time, man. I really do. It means a lot. And I look forward to talking to you again. I wish you guys the best luck this year. If I don't talk to you again, hope you get to play all of them.
Thank you, Coach. And I appreciate you having me on, man. And I really mean it. Y'all's podcast is it's one of the most useful, just no fluff. I loved the 10 tips winning football game. I went back and listened to some of them today, sitting in the pool with my daughters, man. It's just some good little tidbits on there. I really enjoy it.
I appreciate it. I do. It's a unique perspective when you're not coaching, Coach. When you're coaching, you're so ingrained in what you're doing.
Yeah.
that sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. My vision on things and some of the things I've been able to put out that have helped people, I probably couldn't have even seen it that way a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah.
It really has to do with it because I'm not really emotionally invested.
Yeah.
I can say, why is this better than this?
Yeah.
Why would you not do this? You know, and it's been interesting for me because I didn't anticipate doing that with my life, to be honest. So it's worked out nicely.
That's awesome, Coach.
Yeah. But I wish y'all the best luck. If I can ever help you, let me know.
Oh,
And I drive, I went to the University of Alabama, but I'll stop by Auburn every now and then.
Yeah.
And if I stop by,
I'll too long now, you won't be an Alabama fan now. That Auburn will rub off on you.
I know. I mean, look, most of my best friends went to Auburn. I just went to Alabama. I got to hate them a couple days a year, you know, but I love Auburn. It's a good place. You know, it's just the city. I love the city. I love the town. I cheer against the football team one day a year. How about that?
Yeah. Gotcha. I totally understand.
All right, Coach. I'll talk to you later, man.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
See you.